Hello again, I am Jim Bob and welcome back to Railway Empire for a look at the brand new Great Britain and Ireland DLC. So this DLC adds in some really nice new features. First and foremost, it adds in a whole new area, Great Britain and Ireland. And as someone who is from the UK, very, very pleased to have this map. And also some of the trains as well that have been accompanied with this. There are a number of different locomotives that are part of this DLC, including three of the most famous steam trains in the world. The Rocket, the very first steam train from Robert Stephenson, is in the game. The Mallard, which is still the official record holder for the fastest ever steam train. And the Flying Scotsman, a legendary steam locomotive. They are all included as part of this DLC. On top of that, there is also a free update that goes alongside this. So if you don't have the DLC, you can still access some of the new features, which include a new platform signalling mode for stations and warehouses. This allows you to upgrade existing stations and warehouses to have a signal control, so that no longer do you have to pick which platform the train goes in on. It'll automatically pick the least busy platform. So you can't now route trains to specific platforms, but they do, as I say, automatically route themselves to whichever platform is free, and it helps turn things around a lot quicker in those stations. You shouldn't get a really long queues when you get a lot of traffic going through those stations anymore. You'll still get a couple of queues from time to time depending on the volume of your traffic, but it will be substantially reduced. It's a big improvement. On top of that, there is also a new freelancer available, the analyst, who will post stock market reports either to inflate or decrease the value of a company. Very useful if you want to lower the value of a company to try and acquire shares, and likewise if you're trying to raise some fast cash and you have shares in another company, you can hire the analyst to inflate the value of the shares, give the company a big spike in value, and then sell those shares for a large profit. Nice little feature, nice little extra. And as I say, the analyst, the signaling control, those are free updates, so you don't need the DLC for those. But obviously if you want to play the map and you want to play with the new trains and the new scenario, which we're going to be jumping in on, then you do need the DLC. So let's jump in. It's the Transport Revolution, set in 1830 to 1850. The last years have seen an industrial progression of overwhelming magnitude. As soon as the streets and canals have not been able to cope with the enormous requirements of the industrial centres anymore, the first steam locomotives started to roll. In these days, a handful of engineers and a businessman kicked off a transport revolution arising from the United Kingdom. So we are starting in Liverpool with a starting budget of 800,000. We're going to bump the AI level up to very hard on this one, just so we can try and really improve our rating at the end. The harder the difficulty, the better your overall rating will be, assuming that you can achieve a completion. You get more points for the harder the difficulty. We're going to leave the rest as normal, so realistic rail network, normal pause mode, and let's start the transport revolution.
I always tell the truth, even when I'm lying.
We have no choice in choice of character. We are given the trickster, so we're going to struggle for research, but we will get a lot of spies as a side benefit of using the trickster, so we'll be able to steal some technology.
Stevenson, Robert Stevenson, pleased to meet you. As you might know, I am known for a certain expertise in building and handling steam locomotives, and I look forward to collaborating with you. One of the very first railway lines has been opened up between Manchester and Liverpool recently, unfortunately only on paper. Let us make these plans become reality.
So there we go. Our first task is to connect Liverpool and Manchester. Liverpool here is our home base. Eventually, with this scenario, we are going to have to create a link all the way down into London, down here. Now, a lot of the area is blocked off at the moment, so we can't build that. We have to build up our existing network in stages until we kind of get permission to to build the route all the way through to London. So our first task is to connect up Liverpool and Manchester, and once we've done that, we need to kind of grow those towns a bit as well. If we take a look at the task list there, you can see by the end of 1831 those cities need to be connected. Now that's a really, really easy thing to achieve. All we have to do is literally just build a connection, and that task completes instantly. However, we're not going to have enough cash to do what I want to do, so we're going to immediately issue a bond and start work building our connection. Now, I'm going to build a very overdeveloped starting network, simply because it's going to make things easier for upgrading and sorting everything out as we progress. So I'm going to start off, we have to build in Liverpool first, that's our hometown. So let's drop in one of the new stations with signalling control. There are 100,000 more than a standard large station, but you can see that they do have these large extensions either side. And this is basically the switch tracks that I generally put in anyway, but they come pre-attached to the station, and you can see the signal boxes either side as well. So this is what allows the trains to route onto the correct platforms. And we're going to drop that. I want to give myself some good space for turns, etc. We drop that about there, like that, and then we're going to drop another one of those in Manchester. And straight away we got our first trophy, platform 9 3/4, which is to set up one of these trophies, one of these stations with signalling control in the Great Britain area. So for Manchester, I'm going to plonk that station there, like that, and then going forward, we have a lot of new sort of regional products as well. So we've got potatoes here, we've got beef just there, just turn that off there. We've also got pig farms, we've got apple farms for making cider, we have got, what else is new? I'm trying to find an example if I can. Here we go, up here we have a new version of the wool farm. This is designed for us to be able to make tweed, which we can then turn into tweed suits, kind of like wool for cloth for then dresses. It's the same kind of thing. So we have a few new crops to play around with, a few new kind of areas for us to connect our businesses to, and new products that are created as a result of those new local businesses. Now, I want this to be available to our stations, but we won't have beef unlocked as a requirement or a demand for beef until we hit level 30. Sorry, a population of 30,000, not level 30. So we can kind of factor that in, but it's not going to take effect straight away. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a small, actually let's make it, a small train station, and I'm going to key this as far away as I possibly can, like that. In fact, I'm actually going to turn it this way around to give me a little bit more room to maneuver, and I'm going to drop this in first. I kind of want the angle to be about right, so I think about there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and be clever. So I'm going to put in a little bit of track like this, straighten that edge up like that. There we go. Build that, and then take the edge off, and then do the same on the other side. So again, we're going to build a little bit of track like that, straighten the edge off, build it, take that part off, and there we go, we've got a straight line edge there. Now the reason I've done that is so that I can get our main line to bypass the station, but stay close. So you can't obviously build alongside the station, there has to be a gap, but we can get away with a single track gap. So I'm doing that, and then if we link that together, we have a line that is now one track spaced apart from the station. So we have a nice little diversion loop, essentially, or we will have a nice little diversion loop going forward just there. Now, what I'm also been experimenting with is running my tracks with some nice good spacing between the two of them. So that's my two freight lines, and then we've got a spacer piece of track, and then we're going to have two passenger lines. And this is because, especially in the early days when engines don't have a lot of power, and any kind of gradient has a massive impact, the freight trains can move incredibly slowly. So even though passenger trains don't generate anywhere near as much money as a freight train that's fully loaded, they are a lot faster, so they will generate cash at a very good rate, and you want to keep those running nice and fast. You don't want them constantly slowing down to tiny speeds. So we need to bring these lines out. So this center line here, this is my spacer line, and then these lines here, these are my passenger lines. So I'm going to bring the passenger lines in on the center like this, and I want to try and maybe straighten that out a touch. There we go. I'm going to do the same over here, and that's my passenger lines. Now, as you know, if you've seen me play before, or if you've played the game yourself, you'll know that you can't do more than two parallel tracks like this with a bridge. So we need to have a space before we can put the next bridge in, which is why we've put that little spacer track in. Now, it's very tight here, but we can just put a little spacer in. Just there, like that. And there we go. So now I can connect this up here. That can go across. And we have the first of our freight lines. And then, just to make sure that the gap stays nice and consistent, it's going to build around the corner like that. Bring this around. And connect up there. And there we go. That's the first of our freight lines. And here's the second. And now this can run very easily around that corner. Come along to here, and then at this point here, we're going to put in a signal. A junction here, some points, like that. So there we go. We have a freight line that'll come in here, and it has to kind of merge back at this point here, because when it gets to here, the signaling control means that a train coming off this line here could go onto any one of these four platforms, and it'll be automatically decided by the computer system itself. So let's just take that little bit out there. That isn't needed anymore, nor is that bit. I'm going to leave this bit in here for now so that I can put in a supply tower. It might go in here, it might go round here. I haven't quite decided yet. And of course, around here we don't have the same concerns for bridges, because there aren't any that are going to be in the way, so we can really kind of take advantage of that. Again, I want to kind of give myself as much room to play around with as possible, but I don't want the corner to be too tight, because if it's too tight a radius like that, then every radius that goes inside is going to get tighter and tighter to the point where you won't actually be able to lay the track. So just need to drag that out a bit, shallow that corner off a little bit.
With
like
this
that.
railway line, we will finally make the railway accessible to the broad population.
And there we
But
go,
it
just
seems
establishing
like the
a single
public and the
connection.
investors are still reserved. As soon as we create more successful lines, this will change.
So as I stated, as soon as we can create that connection between Liverpool and Manchester, even if it's just with a single piece of track, it immediately clears that first objective. There we go. I'm going to bring this piece around here like this, and you can see why I needed to take out that credit note, because I'm already almost out of cash. So this is my spacer track, so that needs to sort of come to about there, I think. There we go. And the reason I've done it like that is so that once we get to this point of the corner, we can again kind of shallow that line off a little bit, like so. And then let's get our final freight line up and running. And again, this needs to come in before we hit the switchbacks. Like that. There we go. Now eventually we will be connecting this onto our 2 freight lines over here. In fact, we can probably go ahead and do that in a minute. But before we do that, there are a few things I need to get rid of. I'm going to get rid of part of that, like that. I'm going to get rid of that piece. I'm going to get rid of that piece. I am going to take out some of this centerpiece here as well, just to get some money back. There we go. And we need to put in a signal, not a signal, sorry, a supply tower. Now, having the 5 tracks running the way I've built them means that I can actually drop in one of these supply towers like this. Now, I want to check the spacing before I do that. So I'm going to put in my signals first of all. And because we're in the UK, I'm going to actually run UK configuration track. So on the left side, that is the up line, and then the right side is the down line. That's the opposite way around to how we've been doing it with the America, because this is how trains run in the UK. So that's my up line, that's my down line, and then obviously vice versa at the other end. So we're basically routing them exactly the same way as we did before. It's just we're changing which track is the forward track and which is the reverse track. That's the only real change. And then I'm going to drop in signals here as well, because we will be bringing a line out this way to split off to run down towards Birmingham in the future. And so same again over here. Get these lined up. Yeah, that's the wrong way around. That's force of habit. That needs to be that way. So that needs to be that way. That needs to be that way. There we go. So now we have our signals in place, our start and end signals. Let's go ahead and auto space those. There we go. Let's just check that they all line up quite nicely. Generally you tend to find that they struggle around bridges, but that's all gone through quite nicely. Very pleased with that. So now we want to drop in our supply tower. I'm going to drop it in on this corner over the top of the existing signals. So just there. Excellent stuff. We're down to just 44,000, not much cash left at all now. Now, unfortunately, because of the proximity, I can't take out that tiny little nub just there, which is a touch frustrating, but I can take that piece out. So I'll get 12 grand back that way. We have 56,500 euros, or say dollars. It should be pounds, but it's still in dollars. We're going to drop this in just here. We're going to create our first sort of local loop or local connection just here, and I'm going to have to take out another credit note, I think, to be able to continue to get this finished off the way I want it. I'm going to try and straighten that track out a little bit. There we go. And yeah, we do need more cash, so let's take out another credit note. There we go. Drop that in just there. I'm going to want a passing loop. Now in time this will want to be a full-sized passing loop, but for now just a single loop just here will be fine. Now we'll signal that. So again, we're running the tracks in the opposite direction to how we have done in the past, because we are now doing it the way it's done here in the UK. Like us driving on the left, we have our trains on the left as well. And now I need to establish some more little connections. I want one over here at this fish market here, because I want my two towns to develop nice and quickly. So one way for us to do that is to make sure that they are getting all the local resources that will help grow them to the next stage nice and quickly. And once we've established and we're up and running, then we will be saving money as much as we possibly can, because we will need to have funds available to buy businesses. So let's play about with this bit of track a little bit. There we go. So we'll drop that in there. And again, we're going to want a passing loop on this. I'm actually going to put this passing loop on here. In fact, we'll do it here. We'll bring it around off this. Actually, no, I'll do it on the bottom line, like this. Again, with signal control, it gives us a bit more flexibility now as to how we put these extra lines in. So I just want to make sure that the track is long enough. That should be more than enough. Bring that in. Yeah, that should be long enough. Again, we're going to need to signal that as well. So put a stop there, a directional there, and then same again at this end, like that. And this way I can run fish to both towns, but mainly to Manchester, and I can run apples to both Manchester and to Liverpool. So that's that there. I'm also going to need to set up a hog connection over here for the pigs. So, bearing in mind that again, this is probably going to want to route to Birmingham in the future, I need to choose my positioning a little bit carefully on this. And this connection might not get set up straight away, because I do need to be able to pay for the trains. And I've got no more credit notes available after this one. So, I'm just going to establish the start point of this area. I'm going to buy a couple of trains, get some trains running. Actually, it's going to be better for us if we come back to the trains later. We'll save that money. So we're pretty much good to go. Let's jump in and start adding some trains to our routes. So first off, let's get a passenger line running between Liverpool and Manchester. And this is my freight line, so I want them running on this set of tracks over here. So this is the up line here, so that is where the first waypoint goes, and that routes them onto this line here. And then once they leave Manchester, route them back on the other line there. And now we have a dedicated line specifically for our passengers. Let's set that up like that as a passenger and mail line only, and add a locomotive. And the only one we have available is the Rocket. So there it is, Louis Stevenson's Rocket. And off that goes. Lovely. Let's start adding in some other trains as well. We want a freight service to run between Liverpool and Manchester, and that one is automatically routed on the shortest possible route, which is our freight line, which is what we want. You can see, again, look, it's automatically just routing it from platform 1. They always seem to start on the shortest possible platform, and then from there they will then route themselves automatically to whichever platform is available. This one we want to set as freight only. Get another Rocket involved. We've got a reporter available. That's no use to us at all. And our current objective now is to achieve an average balance of $4,500 with at least 8 active trains. So the next train we want is from Perry Estate to Manchester. And again, you can see automatic routing Just putting it in on the shortest possible route, and then it'll be automatic choice of platforms after that. This just needs to be left as automatic. And we'll get another rocket involved, and then I've got one more rocket I need to get going, and that's from Perry Estate to Liverpool, and then from there it's going to go to Robinson Sea Farm, and then to Manchester. So it kind of creates this weird looking egg shape or egg timer kind of look, but the crisscross is going to work for us. And what we need to do is when we leave Liverpool, we need to make sure that we are not carrying any freight with us. And then Robinson Sea Farm will turn up with a full load of fish heading to Manchester, and then when we leave Manchester, we need to make sure we're not carrying any freight cars at all, so that we can then load up for full back at Perry Estate. This needs to be a freight-only train. There we go. And this is going to supply additional resources to our two cities. So Liverpool is going to need fruit, and they will get that. And then a short hop over to Robinson Sea Farm for fish to be delivered to Manchester. We don't need to worry about delivering fish by train here yet, because towns are small, and those fish will arrive by wagon. So it saves us having to pay that little bit extra. You can see here our trains are running. I would like to duplicate this and get at least one more passenger train running, but I don't have the cash just yet. Oh, there we do. Now we do. So we'll get a second passenger train running. Ooh, actually, I just realised that corner piece there can come out now. And that gets us an extra £7,000 back. So there we go. We have 5 trains up and running. We need 8 for the objective, and we'll get there. But here is our first freight train. Let's add that security guard to this train to improve the value of our goods. And you can see automatically, look, it's being routed there onto that platform. We didn't do that. That's automatically done here, because we had a train leaving platform 1, we had another one coming through on platform 2, and it just routed that one automatically onto platform 3, which is awesome. And here you can see our freight split. We are going to need another supply tower somewhere. We'll come to that a little bit later. And there is our passenger service, or one of our 2 passenger services. So these are the apples that we brought from Perry Estate. These are going direct through to Liverpool. And if you look at the speed, we've got a 12 mile an hour speed at the moment. If we check out the speed of a rocket here, you can see it's going at 13. It's not much of a difference at the moment because it's on a downhill gradient here. But when this turns this corner and starts going uphill, well, you can see just on the corners that they lose speed. But when this makes the return journey and goes up this gradient, it's a very shallow gradient, but when it goes up, it'll slow down quite considerably. And you'll see that on the next train that runs through on the freight line, whereas the passenger line is able to run much faster. I would again like to get one more of those up and running. So as soon as this train docks here, and which platform is it routing it on? On platform 2. We will clone our passenger line and get a third passenger train running. Let's wait for that cache. There it is. So there's an extra train automatically being routed from platform 1. This freight train now coming in on platform 3. I love that automatic routing. It's a wonderful little free update. And you can see that... where's that train going? Why is that train doing that? Perry Estate to Liverpool. Why isn't it dropped off? Why is it picked up? Oh, I know why. I know what's happened. because I set it as a freight only train, it has automatically reset the manual choices that I made. So I need to reallocate those. So if you are going to do manual loading or choose which which products are taken, make sure that you set whether you want it to be a freight train or a passenger train or whatever. Do that first, then make your manual adjustments, because otherwise you're going to end up with a situation like I've got where it's completely undone the changes I made because I then applied a blanket template to it. So we're only going to pick up 2 cars of fish, which is a bit of a shame, and then run those to Manchester, but it'll help. And then it'll deliver that meat to Manchester, which is where the meat was going to go anyway, but it was going to go with our other freight train over here. And you can see 4 miles an hour up that hill. This is why I've got separate freight and passenger lines, because we are crawling along at just 3 miles an hour here. And you can see here comes a passenger train. It's going to, pardon the pun, it's going to rocket past our other rocket. Look at the speed difference. Yes, it's a bit of a gradient, and this is going to slow down a bit as well. But the other train is running so slow. This is still running at 13 miles an hour all the way up the hill. This is why I have separate freight and passenger lines, because otherwise our passenger trains are just going to be ridiculously held up, and it's going to really congest the lines. So this allows us to keep our passenger services running fast and efficiently and smoothly and profitably in comparison to our freight services, which just need to kind of really deliver the goods. They don't need to be there essentially, immediately, very quickly. We have a professor, which is useless to us because we have to give up innovation points to get money, and it's so hard for us to get innovation points with the trickster that we never ever really want to use a professor. We do want to market crier though. We want to boost the number of passengers we get in our stations, and you can see because we delivered apples here, we're ticking the boxes on 4 of the 6 categories, which is enough to promote growth in Liverpool. Now when that meat arrives here and the fish, you'll see that adding fish into the mix, instead of being just 3 of the 5, it'll be 4 of the 5, and that'll promote growth in Manchester as well. And having those apples delivered to Liverpool helps us out in the sense that we still don't have a rail connection to our hog farm over here, to our pigs. This won't kick in, as I say. Beef doesn't become available until we hit a population of 30,000 in the town. So this is another reason why we need to grow Liverpool and Manchester as quickly as we can. Where is that freight train? It's there. So you can see this takes a long time to get going. I would like to duplicate that train. Try and get some extra materials moving between those two. And of course all the changes that we made were done after the problem, and we've cloned the train since we've confirmed those changes. So if we look here at Perry Estate, here's the train that we've just cloned. If we look at these changes, you can see the maximum of 0 cars leaving Manchester has now been applied. Same at Liverpool. Those have carried across as the clone of the previous train. So that'll get fruit and fish moving back and forth between these 2 towns where they're needed to help promote growth. Still waiting for this one to come through, and you can see, look at this, just 3 miles an hour. Again, this is why we have that separation of passenger and freight lines. Especially, it's even more noticeable in the early stages when your locomotives don't have any power. And they're so weedy that any kind of gradient really causes a major problem. See that train starting to speed up again now as it comes off the corner onto flatter ground on the approach to the station. Of course, now it's being held up at a signal. You see our automatic routing working very nicely there. our trains moving through very, very efficiently and effectively, and we should get a little bit of growth in Manchester once those fish are dropped off. So just wait for those cars to unload. There we go. And if we look at the fulfillment of demands, it's at 60% now. And there we go. We've hit over 60% and we're starting to get growth. And that is because we've now delivered fish. And we aren't going to have many fish, which is why I've got a second train running on the line. That is, where is that other train? Hasn't reached Robinson Sea Farm yet. There it is. But even here, look, on the downhill stretch, the weight of the cargo means that the trains are slower than the passenger services. Not by much, but enough. So again, even on the down loop, on the downhill run, it's still faster for our passenger trains to have their own specific routing like that. We do have a breakdown. We are going to get some breakdowns causing problems. I'm going to build a maintenance shed here to try and keep my trains running as best I can. Most of the trains are going to stop there. The only one that isn't going to stop there at some point is the one train that runs between Perry Estate and Manchester to supply apples for the cider. It's the only train that is going to be subject to bad condition breakdowns until we can afford to get that connection, or that city set up with a maintenance shed of its own. That's the other good thing as well about having these automatic routing stations, is if you do have an engine that needs maintenance, it sits on the track and waits and waits and waits until that maintenance is done. And obviously if you have multiple trains all using a specific platform when you're doing your manual platform selections, then you end up with a big queue while that maintenance is being carried out. Now, without these stations, one of the ways to try and cover off that was to have only certain city stations with maintenance sheds, and then have all of the local business stations to have maintenance sheds, so the maintenance would hopefully be carried out at those local businesses rather than at the main stations, to try and reduce the delay turning trains around. With this, if you have a train that sits and needs to be...
In case you are short of money, you were able to issue bonds to give your project a fresh impetus at any time. Bonds.
If you have a station,
admittedly, bonds have to be repaid always,
trains that need to
but as soon
stop
as
at a
the
station now,
reached the people,
they can sit on that
the
track,
railway
and
will
the automatic routing will immediately put the next train onto a different platform, whichever one is free. So it gets rid of that issue of trains getting maintenance completely clogging up your lines. Let's see. This one being serviced, it is. So the other passenger trains, if we were specifically always using this platform here for that particular passenger service, and we kept cloning that train, then the next train to come in would sit and wait and wait and wait until that had finished its service, loaded up and gone back out again. Now with the automatic signalling, it'll just automatically route it onto whichever platform is free. So you'll see that in a second with the second passenger train coming in. So that should be waiting back at those signals on the other side nearby the bridge, but it's already been routed onto another platform. That is such a huge improvement, it really is. I love that. So let's try and get our pig connection up and running. So again, I'm looking at the run to Birmingham. Oh, we actually got a little bit of track left there. I forgot about that. Let's take that out. I'm going to try and do the same kind of thing. So I'm going to put the platform or the station about there. We're going to do the same little trick to get the straight edges. Straighten that up like that, and then trim off the excess. Same on the other side. Like that. Trim off the excess. Now that we have that straight line, we can build our bypass. So that's the spacer, the 2 freight lines, and then a spacer, and then the 2 passenger lines. And you can see what we're doing at the same time as this is we're keeping all of these tracks level. Like that. They're all going to be built at the same height, which will help. So again, that's the spacer, that's the first freight line, the second freight line, the spacer, the first passenger, and the second passenger. There we go. So let's connect up. And we're out of cash. So we're going to have to let our trains run a little bit longer before we can do that. We do have a stoker available. The stoker is going to improve reliability of our trains. So let's stick that on our Perry Estate to Manchester train, simply because we don't get the chance to service that train yet, and we won't for a while. So that'll help improve its reliability, stop it from breaking down quite so often, because it is going to start breaking down pretty soon. It's also going to run slower soon as well, because we don't have a supply tower on this run yet. So it will hit a point where it runs out of sand and water and will start to naturally slow down. We have 3 passenger trains running, 2 freight trains running on the sort of egg timer loop. We have another freight train running between Liverpool and Manchester. That's 6 trains. That train makes 7. We need 1 more to complete the next objective. And we're going to win all of the objectives, sorry, all of the auctions as well, because although we have 3 opponents, they're not set up yet. They are not established yet. So what I'm also going to try and do is I'm going to try and buy out one of my competitors before they become active. You know, those companies are there. We can steal technology from them. We can try and steal employees, but they don't have any employees because they don't have any trains or services. So we're just going to try and buy them out. As their value goes up, so will the amount of money that we'll be able to hopefully do something with. We can't yet. It won't let us buy them out yet. Okay, that's a bit of a shame. I was hoping to maybe steal a march on the computer there and buy them up before they became available, before they became active. It's not going to let us do that. It's a bit of a shame. So where are we up to? 50 grand in cash, minus our money for the bonds. We just lost about 10 grand because we're running 2 separate bonds. Let's get these freight lines up and running. So we're just going to plot in where we want the freight line to be. I want that to be as tight as I can get away with. I hope that should do it, because I want to have space for these lines to branch out separately across there as well. So I might have to make that even tighter, like that. Straighten that out a bit, like that. Let's try and raise the track out a bit, get it a bit straighter where we can. I'm wary of gradients, but I'm also wary of building very big, expensive bridges. And I want track that doesn't get all really, really weird and wonky. Is that going to be enough, I wonder? Okay. Again, just trying to keep the gradients under control while also keeping the cost down. I think leaving it like that's probably going to be the best thing we can do. So there we go. We need 88 grand to complete the first part of our freight line. Once we've done the freight lines, we can then route this station onto our freight lines, which will then become the connection over to Birmingham once we get access to Birmingham. The basic route I want to try and take is from Liverpool to Birmingham through to Oxford, and then from Oxford through to London. Keep it nice and simple. A nice, reasonably direct route from Liverpool all the way through, and then we can start branching out and connecting to other cities, you know, as our funds grow and our requirements change. So we need to speed time up, try and raise a bit of cash. I've got an engineer. He will reduce maintenance requirements as well. I'm going to throw him on the same train. Again, just to protect that train. Keep it running a little bit better. Here you can see this train had a random breakdown, I think. But this train is now fully loaded with fish. It's got apples on it. Why has it still got apples on it? Oh, don't tell me it left and there was no demand for it. It might be there was no demand for the apples. We've got a promoter. Let's slow time down. Take the engineer on. A promoter. We will hire a promoter for... Liverpool or Manchester? Let's go with Manchester, because Liverpool had a little bit of a head start population-wise. So, 29,000 in there, 24,000 in Manchester. So the promoter will help to catch those two up. This town is about to get access to beef. There's our first spy. So let's hire the spy and steal from one of them. Doesn't matter which one. No repercussions either. We'll get no technology being stolen from us, no personnel being swiped, no bad newspaper articles, etc. None of that stuff's going to happen, at least not until those companies actually get up and running. Let's check out the engineer on this train. We're going to reduce maintenance requirements. Yes, we'll do that. There we go. And have we hit 30,000 in Liverpool? We have. So now we can look at connecting Baker Cattle, to our freight line. Let's get this connection built there first of all. There we go. And now we can route this in just here. Let's see, where's the signals? There they are. So I need 12 grand. Oh, it's just a little bit too much, isn't it? Let's try and shorten that out a bit. Perfect. Actually, I kind of need to, if I can. No, I can't. We'll leave it like that. And what I also need is a passing loop on this side. Again, this is just going to be planned. It's not going to be dropped in straight away, but we will need it to connect in that way, like that. And we've got covered freight car. Excellent. That'll give us, I think, some improved value for our freight, which is quite a lot. So that's an extra 8% value on our freight fees. Very, very useful indeed. How much do I need for this little bit of track? 13.5. See, you've got a little bit of a queue here while one train hits the supply tower, just holding up that train there. I'm probably going to get rid of one of these two trains, actually. The Perry State to Manchester trains. I'm going to get rid of one of them in a moment. just because they're carrying more apples than they actually need to. And it will negatively impact the amount of freight being transported on our direct city-to-city freight line as well. So let's speed time up to get some extra cash. There we go. Let's build that connection. And now we can create a line from Baker Cattle into Liverpool. I need to signal the junction just here. Like so. And then same again at the other end of the loop. Like that. And we've already added the train, haven't we? There we go. So how much do we need? 29 grand I think it is for a rocket. Yeah, 29 grand. We don't quite have that, but we're not far off. Let's clear off the mediator notification. I've got a train that's broken down, in bad condition. Well, that train will get serviced in just a moment, as soon as it pulls in. Another market crier would be useful, but I need the cash elsewhere. Oh, Manchester is up to 34 grand. So, actually, what I can do is I can change this. So, we're going into Baker Cattle to Liverpool. Then we're going to go back. I need to build the rest of the line first. So, let's do that. Just look and see where the signals are. It's a little bit wild. There we go. Same again. Put a little loop. Build that. Put the signals on. I'm probably only going to have one train running this, so it's not going to be a major issue. And these passing loops aren't really technically long enough for trains to stack up in here. They're basically simply just to route the trains. That's all these are here for. There we go. So, if we go back to this route here, so we go from Baker Cattle to Liverpool, back to Baker Cattle, into Manchester, and then return that that loop. So again, I need to make sure, do freight first, and now I need to make sure that we leave Liverpool and Manchester with 0 cars. Just need that a little bit more cash. Come on, one of my trains come in. There we go. So we can now transport beef to both of our cities and continue their growing process, which will be very, very good for us, and also generate extra cash as well. So this train will literally take beef to Liverpool, shuttle back, pick up more beef, go to Manchester, drop it off, shuttle back, and repeat the process, just running back and forth between the two. Again, it's not a huge demand, so we only need one train really doing that. And that is all tickety-boo, hunky-dory, etc., etc. So, that seems like a good place for us to end this particular episode. We will look to get the pig connection up and running next time out, and then we'll try looking to save some cash and pay off at least one of our bonds. Because as soon as these towns hit 40,000, it's going to open up a new... I mean, this one's close. Oh, Manchester's even closer. It's going to open up a new business opportunity, and we want to be able to make that ourselves if we can. Let's see. That's passengers. Improve. Yeah, let's take this one. We want to try and unlock a more powerful engine as soon as we can. So, yeah, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. I am Jim Bob, and I'll be back with some more Railway Empire, Great Britain and Ireland very soon.